I am John Devaney. I am the chair of the Government Affairs Committee of the Yakima Chamber. Our forum today will have all 4 candidates for Yakima County Auditor. Representative Ross, our 4th candidate, just called. He's on his way. He'll be here shortly. The format today is a candidate forum. It is not a debate. So I will be asking the questions and timing the candidates. Each will have a chance to introduce himself and his platform. Then we'll proceed to a series of questions that were prepared by the Government Affairs Committee. We will not be taking audience questions, but the candidates will be available at the end if you have a question you'd like to ask them individually. I will again be the timekeeper, and we'll take them in alphabetical order. And again, because we timed this out to make sure they have the maximum amount of time to talk about their platforms, please limit your applause and interruptions so that they have their full time to give their answers. I will now introduce our 4 candidates in alphabetical order. Micah Cawley, Mayor of Yakima, prefers Republican. Kyle Freeborn prefers Republican. Earl Hall, who's expressed no party preference, and Representative Charles Ross, who prefers Republican. Please join me in thanking them for being here today. Each candidate will now have 5 minutes to introduce himself and his platform. I will begin with Mayor Cawley.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, John, for hosting this forum with the Chamber. It's great to be out here today and talk about my candidacy for Yakima County Auditor. I started in politics at a very young age. I was 16, started going to Republican Party meetings and trying to get involved, and found out that it wasn't the easiest thing to do to get involved in politics. You'd think that people want to put you to work, but there's some requirement about learning who's running for office and what these things do. I grew up here. My dad was a small business owner, talking about taxes and the city and regulation, and I asked him when I was in high school if I could go to Washington, D.C. on a trip. And they want to take you back to D.C. and show you the federal government, teach you about the executive branch, the legislative branch, the judicial branch, and help you find yourself politically. Who are you? What do you believe in? What issues do you support or not support? And how does our system work? And that's what really got me going. I came back from that trip very inspired, and they said, go get involved in your community. So I wrote letters to the city council members and the fair board and tried to get on some boards and commissions at a very young age, and was told, thanks, but no thanks. You're a little bit young for this. Go find something else to do. And that kind of fired me up to learn more and get involved. And I started watching the city council and hearing more about some of the decisions being made with schools being closed or all these budget issues we were having. And I said, I want to run for office. And called a few friends of mine, Janae Holmquist, Rob McKenna, and said, hey, I'm looking for some support. Do you think I could do this? And they said, well, do you know the issues? Do you understand what's going on? And so I did some homework. Same process very much with the auditor's race, is that elections are my passion for that. I spent a lot of time in their division on election night learning about how these ballots are counted and what happens. But I wanted to learn more about the office, see could I actually do the job if elected. And I had a meeting with Corky and toured the office, and went through the 3 divisions they have: finance, recording, licensing, and elections, and learned a lot about what they do. And I think some good ideas I could bring to the auditor's office involve my experience in media. I've worked 14 years as a career broadcaster, and you learn a lot about promotion, sales, running different functions, and getting things involved. I really want to brand the elections division as one of our premier, branches, and say, let's have some tents at different functions. They're out in all kinds of different places, but bring some new ideas and energy. The voters pamphlet, I had a friend text me and say, hey, who are you voting for in this race? Because if not, I'm going to leave it blank. And that tells me, here's a link to the online voters guide, which is up at the website. This is someone I consider a serious voter. So there's this connection that needs to be made between our voters and our citizens, and that is the auditor's office. As far as customer service, when it comes to getting your marriage license or recording your property deed or your sale, those things are all very much systems oriented and things that just need to be done. But the service you get when you walk in is great, and just continue that great tradition that's being done there. And of course, the finance division is accounts payable for the county. A lot of people may not know this, but all the bills that come in for Yakima County go through the auditor's office, are paid out, double checked. Payroll is done through the auditor's office. And then of course, the gathering information for the CAP, we're working very closely with the county treasurer, with the commissioners, and everyone to gather that information and present it to the commissioners and to the state for audit. And I really feel like my energy and my experience as mayor and leading our senior city staff and my track record there, which we'll talk about maybe a little later on in my closing statement if we get one, would be very helpful. So thank you for coming out today. I look forward to meeting you and asking for your vote.
just being here. I know you guys gave us applause, but for you guys to come out and see us, that's a big deal, and shows how much you guys are involved with politics. Well, I'll cut right to the chase. When I heard of the auditor's office being open, I first thought of what I got an education in, and that was economics and finance, as well as in agribusiness. And also as a math teacher, I looked at that and thought, I manage 100 kids per year, and these are kids who are not on a salary. These are kids who effectively, some want to learn, but others are not as helped through their life, and they need a helping hand. How much more so with a managerial position in the auditor's office? Would I be able to help highly qualified individuals do their job? I chose to run for this office simply because I looked at the educational backgrounds, and education has been very important to me and my family. My grandma was a paraeducator. My grandpa was a teacher at Perry Tech. Both my parents are teachers. My dad is here. He's been a U.S. history teacher and earth science teacher for 37 years. My mother has also been a teacher for 37 years. And it's just been instilled in me to pursue education to the fullest extent. And so, along with that has been the conservative and Republican viewpoint of being fiscally responsible. And to me, that has been paying for my own education and going into debt and working hard to get that paid off. Now, when I think about my education in relationship to the job, and sometimes I hear that it's simply a managerial position, which, if that's the case, then I can just delegate all the work to other people, like a CEO that hasn't really thought about where his workers have been. But with my education and my experience managing, I feel like I would be the best candidate to do this. Thank you.
I'll figure this out. High tech. Way back in my generation, we had to talk loud. I want to also thank you for the opportunity to come out here today. I'm running for auditor. The Yakima Herald on Thursday, I thought, did a very good spread on our different, who we are, what we're running for. Their summary on the front page said that this is a race between two Republican politicians, an accountant, and a teacher. I am that accountant. If you go to the voters pamphlet and do the voters guide at the auditor's website and look at the candidate statement, you will see two words on both my Republican opponent's thing, and that is, I want. I can assure you, I do not want to be the auditor. My statement begins, you and I need a good watchdog to protect our votes, protect our money, protect our future. My life choices have enabled me to know when to bark, to warn, when to fight, to stop, and when to weigh in praise. I was raised in a family, my mom and dad were both manual laborers. We were pretty poor. I watched the toll on their bodies as they worked hard to provide for me. They really stressed several rules in my life. One of these was that all of us need to obey laws, and there's no exceptions to this. Micah talked about his getting into politics at age 16. I got into government at age 13. Our city had a Scouts in Government Day where Scouts took over the city for a day. When I was 13, I became the police chief of Umatilla, Oregon. Upon raising my hand to swear that I will obey the laws of the city of Umatilla, I went to the city clerk and said, what are the laws of the city of Umatilla? She gave me the notebook of the city laws. I flipped through it. I came across this law that says no immigrant or child of an immigrant shall own property in Umatilla, Oregon. I said, that's bizarre. So I made a copy of that. I knew that my grandmother on my father's side came from Canada. I went to him. I gave him a fine of $5 to support the Boy Scout troop because he was unlawfully owning property in Umatilla. I went to my mother because I knew my mother's parents came from Germany. I also fined her $5. Hey man, I'm on a roll. I went to the mayor. I said, do you have any parents that came from overseas? Yes, they did. That day, accompanied by the police chief, we raised more money for our troop than we had ever in history. Plus, the thing that I really liked was at the very next city council chamber, the elected officials decided that they would get rid of that ordinance. I was very proud of that. At 13, I'm involved in government. Now, I know that it's sort of unfair for me to stand up here and say, you know, I've had 40 years of this, 50 years of that. These people weren't around it. So I'm just going to go up to the first 26 years of my life. Number one, like I said, my parents were poor. They stressed on me that you need to work hard and get a good education. I decided I would work hard to get a good education. I graduated from high school as valedictorian while working full-time. I went to the University of Oregon, sort of floundered around because I didn't know what to do in college. I had no role models. So I enlisted in the Air Force for 4 years. While I was in the Air Force, I figured out what I wanted to do. The first thing was I wanted to become a certified public accountant. According to the laws of the state of Washington, only certified public accountants can do audits. I somehow thought there was some correlation between audit and auditor. I find out there's not. But I got the 4-year degree that I needed, specialized in accounting. I took the and I got the Haskins and Seltz Award for the outstanding accounting students. I got the Wall Street Journal Award for the best business student, plus I graduated magna cum laude. I took the national CPA exam. It's not good enough to get education, you have to be tested. I got national honors in the uniform CPA exam. It's not good enough to just have an education to be tested, you had to work. I worked for a full year, finally was able to become licensed. So that is me at age 26, which was younger than most of these people here. Some things that I remember, when I was my junior prom, I took my date out to the Coffee Cup Cafe in Umatilla for dinner. After the prom, I had to go back to the Coffee Cup Cafe because I was the janitor there. I had to clean up that restaurant before the next day. I did not go to my senior prom because I was working from 2 o'clock at night until 10 o'clock at night, working at a gas station, Waltz Texaco in Umatilla. So I know about hard work, I worked hard. When I got to the University of Washington, I went to a public hearing by the Department of Transportation on a new freeway they wanted to put through the city of, along the west side of Lake Washington. 2.5 hours I sat there with the department telling me what they were going to do. Finally, we had a chance to express our thing at 9:30 at night. So I made a proposal that we not only have a public hearing where the public heard what the Department of Transportation did. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to come out today. My name is Charles Ross. I'm a currently elected state representative from the 14th District. I thought I'd just, for those of you who I have not met, I thought I'd tell you just a few things about how I ever got to be here. I think it's kind of important when you run for office to talk about who you are and where you come from. My dad was a career military man and retired on the East Coast of Norfolk, Virginia. I was born back there in a naval hospital, but my mom and dad moved out here when I was about 3, and we found our home here in the valley. And I went K through 12 at Natchez Valley School System and graduated out there in the class of 1990. Growing up out there was a wonderful place to be. I'm glad my parents chose that location. Matter of fact, when I was in middle school, I had the paper out for the entire community. And at that age, getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, I sympathize with those in the media business and DJ early in the morning. It's not fun getting up at 5 o'clock, especially when you are very young. But through delivering those papers, I think is where I developed my work ethic, is that I understand the value of a dollar and how hard it is for many of us to make those dollars and how careful then we should be in the government with how we spend them. Going on beyond high school, I worked for a little bit for a couple of businesses out in Natchez and a couple of really smart business owners where I felt like I learned customer service from and how you treat people when they're willing to hand you your money for a service. Not long after graduation, I joined the United States Navy and had the privilege of sailing around the world with the United States Navy, which is a treat that I will never forget. While serving in the U.S. Navy is where I really learned how to work with people and how to motivate people towards the same goal. Whether you're an officer in the military, whether you're an enlisted person in the military, or even a civilian contractor, leaders tend to stand heads and shoulders above most, and we're thankful to have them in the Navy. And and I miss those days a little bit every once in a while when I see Navy ships and sailors walking around. As soon as I got out of the Navy, I took my GI Bill money and put myself through school. We were married to my wife at a very early age. We've just celebrated 20 years of marriage here a year ago, and we had a very small home, little apartment, but I was going to college. She was working in nursing homes and things like that. And those 2 degrees to me are very important. I think they show commitment and the courage to finish something when it's not easy. And those degrees have helped me in a lot of ways today. Some of them with my professional career and dealing with folks who have had a death in their family, and the others dealing with finance and how to run a business. All that time when I got back from the Navy, I had a neighbor that was incredible. Doug McNeil was a school teacher and my vice principal in middle school. He encouraged me to get involved in local government. He said, Charles, if you want to complain about something, get involved, be a part of it. And that began what has been an amazing ride for me. I was a local county or a local city councilman for many years. I was elected mayor of the community, and kind of an amazing task for a person my age at that time, learning about above ground pumps and below ground wells and sewer treatment plants and digesters and all those things that go along with that. And then I met Jim Clements, and at that time it was Representative Mary Skinner and Senator Alex DiCio. He were looking for a candidate to run for the legislature, and they invited me to do so, and still to this day I think it was one of the most amazing accomplishments I've ever had. The chance to go to Olympia and argue on our behalf on what we stand for and values and bring back here things that make our life better is what I felt like my job was. As a legislator, I had 2 or 3 things I focused on. Protecting the disabled for no fault of their own, they need help. Secondarily, helping with law enforcement communities to make safer communities was a goal of mine. And lastly was to live within a budget that was balanced and that did not raise taxes generally to the taxpayers during this time. Which I think we won on all 3 of those levels as a caucus and as a Republican group of people. But how that relates to how I think I can be a better auditor for you than the other candidates up here. I think the auditor's job is many things, but first and foremost, it is a management position. You are going to be managing and asking folks who are very professional in their areas of expertise to continue the good work that's been done in the auditor's office for years. And I think I'm the person to do that. I think my political background, the experience I have in the public sector as well as in the private sector will help me work with the existing elected officials on the county level to continue to provide very stable, very high quality service to the voters, taxpayers, and businesses that interact with the auditor's office. And with that, I appreciate your time.
Our first question then is this. Local voter turnout in Yakima County has lagged behind the state average in this past several elections. Yakima County participation over 7.5 points lower than the state average both in the 2012 and 2010 general elections. As auditor, what would you do to encourage Yakima County residents' voices are heard in our local, state, and national elections? You will each have 2 minutes to respond, beginning with Representative Ross.
Thank you. I think that's a good question. I think the answer to the question can come from a couple different viewpoints. I can't imagine how we would make it easier for a person to vote in today's society. You can register online, the ballot comes to your mailbox. All you have to do is open the envelope, fill out the ballot, put it in its sealed envelope, put it in the other envelope, put a stamp on it, and put it in the mail. I mean, that is not complicated. So there's a part of me that feels that our society does not value what that ballot is. And as an auditor, how you go about doing or making an effort to change that, I think you need to be highly visible. I know Corky and her office has done a lot of work of getting out in front of potential new voters to register them as soon as possible, whether that be at a citizenship event, and showing them this is exactly how easy it is. Please come forward, fill out these forms, and become a voting member of the greatest country in the world. And I think that works. I think there are an awful lot of people who are registered to vote, the envelope shows up, but as a consequence of life and all the other things we do, that ballot doesn't get sent in. Short of having folks go out and door knock and do efforts to get it filled out and turn in, I don't know of a whole lot of other specific ways you can compel a citizen to fill that ballot out, other than to keep talking about it in public record or public announcements. It's time to vote, remind you to vote, and those kinds of things, which I look forward to doing that in, maybe even in the school systems where you get kids who are amped up, excited, as Mayor Cawley mentioned, excited about becoming old enough to participate in one of the most amazing functions that we have in this country. So thank you.
To me, the key to voter turnout is the precinct committee officer. When I first arrived in Umatilla, I don't know where I am. When I first arrived in Yakima, I registered and ran to be the Republican precinct committee officer for precinct 133. These are the people with their hands on the ground. These are the people who know their neighbors. These are the people who challenge their neighbors. Do you know how to vote? What are the issues? When I did that, I went to the Polk City Director to find out who lived in my neighborhood. I went to the voters list to find out who was registered. I did not care whether they were Republican or Democrat. I wanted them to know the issues and come out to vote. I did recently send out a letter to almost all. I missed one precinct committeeman. There was a precinct committeeman at Cheese named Charles Ross, who I did not send the invitation to, but I sent it to Bruce Smith. I sent it to Sandra Veltzer. I sent it to Gabriel Munoz. I don't care your political leanings. I want to increase the ties between the Yakima County Auditor's Office and the people on the ground who are the precinct committee officers. I can't do that, they can. That's American democracy at best.
That's a very interesting question, but in answering that, you need to be fiscally responsible. So I think it comes down to marketing a little bit more and advertising. As we've seen with politicians, many have been able to market themselves with a little extra cash. I'm funding my own campaign, but when it comes with the money of Yakima County, being responsible with that money and communicating not only with the people who you are managing, but also with businesses and other citizens of where that money is going, I think is first and foremost. Now the marketing and the advertising, I think we all know where that comes down to. TV ads, commercials, signs around town, that's the easy part, but making sure that the money is accounted for, that's the main part. Also, I think there's a little bit of fear with some people not turning out to vote. I think it relates to citizenship sometimes. I love this county. As an agribusiness degree holder, and also as a teacher of my kids, I look down the roster as I take attendance every day, and I see everyone who has come from migrant backgrounds. Sometimes some people aren't citizens, and there's fear that comes with that, and that's where the low voter turnout comes from. We're the second biggest county in the state. Now that may not come down to the number of citizens that we have, but nevertheless, the citizens need to have a say. That shouldn't come down to fear. So making sure that we reach those folks by, I like to say things flat on the face, flat on the nose, and say, you don't have to worry about this. You're not going to have some bad thing happen to you just because you vote and you find out, oh, you're not a citizen. Well, let me back up here. We have to make citizens. See what I did there? People have to become citizens.
Very good question, and if you head to my website, micahcawley.com, I've actually looked into a lot about elections and where I would try to put my focus on to get people to register, to turn out, and to kind of reignite that fire in our country. There's a big disconnect between us and the voters, and I've found a lot of times in schools as mayor when I speak to young people, and at St. Joe's and St. Paul's especially, the questions I get from those kids about what do I do and how do I do it is very interesting compared to some of those schools I may go to around the valley. And it tells me that we've got to educate our young people as far as what does it mean to be a registered voter. When you turn 18, you should walk out of high school or right around that time and want to go register to vote and continue to vote in those elections. So government does a lot of pushing on people, and we've got to do more pulling of people in, give them a reason to come vote. I really think that being the county with the lowest voter turnout in the state, that tells something to me. We do mail your ballot to your house, so why aren't people filling it out? It's information. People act on information. You see a news report. You see an ad. You go, oh, okay, I'm looking to look more into that and do some research and then make an educated decision, right? I'm going to leave a race blank if I don't know who's running for that office. And when we took away the printed voters pamphlet due to funding, we got to find a way to bring that back. How many of you sat down and pulled that thing out with your ballot and went through it? And, okay, I like this person. I made some notes. Oh, I have a question here. We got to find a way to bring that back, whether it's through government support or local community support. Social media, I helped create the city's social media policy. That's where young people are. You know, you had the Rock the Vote campaigns when I was growing up. We can bring Seahawks to town. We can bring people to town to come into the schools, or people that are already coming here and say, hey, would you put a plug in for registering to vote and what the importance of that is. Secretary of State's office has a lot of resources for county auditors to go take curriculum into the schools. They even used to go around and do Jeopardy here with Sam Reed. And so those types of things can be done very easily. The media is more than happy to donate advertising and give you a comprehensive media campaign to remind people, hey, ballots are coming out this week. Check the voters pamphlet online. Turn in your ballots. So that's what I would do.
Thank you. Our next question. Businesses and individuals interact with the auditor's office more than many other county offices, from document recording and licensing services to elections. As auditor, what would you do to keep operating costs low while still ensuring a high level of public service? You each have 2 minutes. Just going to answer this question beginning with Mayor Cawley.
Well, it's a good question, and a lot of times people may not know this about the auditor's office, but you're given your budget from the commissioners and you can do what you like within that budget. So I believe the current staffing we have is what you got to work with in this current economic times, and just have to do the best job you can. But that's through efficiencies a lot of times. Is e-recording, we're at 35%. We got to find a way to get more electronic recording. We got to transfer our records from paper to digital so they're all handy and available. Those types of things that you can get done. And things like that I had a track record at City Hall of doing, is we've got to find a way to make it as efficient and effective as possible. But asking the business owners, the title companies that you work with, sit down with those owners and say, okay, what can I do to help you make your job easier? The sub-agencies that do licensing, what do you need from us to get this process along and to get it done? So I think there's a lot of ideas that could come forward. And then asking the staff, you know, you've been here in this office for how many years, and having one-on-one meetings with the staff and saying, what do you think we can do? And take those ideas, put them into action, and help make it a more efficient office.
That was a good answer. You know, contacting businesses, contacting the various entities in Yakima County, and having an open door policy with anything they have that they want to bring up is very important. And to be approachable, I think that's a major part of being county auditor. You know, what we need is a manager who is not afraid to approach any business in Yakima. But the reason why I paused so long is because I recently did a project on some government contracts, and contracts come directly through the auditor's office. And you know, I don't want to point fingers or anything on this. It's just that as a self-funded candidate, I'm beholden to nobody but the voter and also all the other businesses. So if there's any competition, there won't be any competition with me. There will just be objective policies created, and the funding will go to who needs it. Thank you.
First of all, I second what Micah said. This was entirely my goal, or my thing that I've said before. One thing that I got my government experience working for the South Central Workforce Council. This was a former county department that found it more efficient to split off from the county, become its own organization, hire its own accountant, do its own contract with the state auditor than it was to deal with the county auditor's department. I decided let's change that. I brought this book, it's called The Goal, and when I'm elected in January, when I get my very first paycheck, Mike Leda and other county officials, everybody in my department is going to copy this. What is the goal of government? The goal of government is to provide services that we need at a far cheaper price than we can do ourselves. I'm running as an independent because basically Republicans have gotten so focused on cutting costs that they no longer have the ability to perform services. Democrats are so focused on raising prices that they price themselves off the market. We need to look at the bottom line. I did this with my clients. People come in and says, I want you to cut my taxes. I'm sorry, if I do a good job for you, you're not going to pay more taxes. You're going to pay my accounting fees, which are higher than average, but you're going to have more money left over because I'm going to help you run your business successfully. This is my goal for the auditor's office.
Well, I think that no matter what agency you're in, we use this on our state level issues as well, and God only knows how many agencies are within the state budget. I mean, that budget affects about every single thing we do across the state. But I have learned that anytime you can take the government organization or operation and pair it up with the private sector, you are actually benefiting the taxpayer. Because there's this innate operation that occurs within private sector business models that is not always there in a government model. So I have always been an advocate of creating a smaller, smarter government. And the Herald Republic just the other day ran a story that I think is apropos for today, where inside Corky's office they've installed a new sorting machine that was money up front. Obviously it cost, nothing's free, but the payoff on that auto sorter is going to be, it's going to free up people's time. And in offices like the county auditor or the assessor's office or any of those offices, really what's happening behind those doors is manpower management and service that's created through people. Let's face it, the auditor's office doesn't build anything, right? Last time I checked. Most government agencies don't build anything. They provide a service. And I will be looking for every opportunity where we can streamline what we're doing, looking at those who have had lots of years of expertise in something, because the other thing I learned to do is when you hear somebody that has been there once start talking, you should use the one mouth and the two ears as best as you can, regardless of your age. Because I have also learned that many professionals who are promoted inside the government model are oftentimes promoted because they're a valuable employee. And they will oftentimes know it better than the elected official who's coming in from a different arena. I learned that as a mayor. I'll never forget the first time I looked at a burnt down well house and I'm standing there with an Ackland pump guy. I'm having a heart attack. And he says, we can fix this.
We will have more time at the end to finish any comments that you didn't have time for. Our next question, the auditor's office is also responsible for the county's accounting, payroll, and financial reporting functions. As auditor, what did you do to ensure the responsible handling and use of taxpayer dollars? You have 2 minutes to respond, beginning with Mr. Ross.
As I mentioned earlier, I think that Corky's office and the folks, mainly the accountants within her operation, have done an excellent job over the last decade, and in conjunction with the county commissioner's staff in maintaining a budget that makes sense. So I would be a person that would say simply this: I look forward to coming in there and using what I have learned to try to hone the budget to be more transparent in any way we can, so that folks who don't have the accounting degree or don't have 20 years of experience of reading spreadsheets and dealing with the bar system can read and interpret the budget as best as they can. So I hope that answers the question.
One of the things I found when I was working for the Workforce Council is that the state auditor, they're professional like me. You know, they're coming in, they're trying to get a handle. What is this animal called Yakima County? There was a problem once when Gorky challenged the qualifications of the state auditor. I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that. We're all in this together. We, both me, the county auditor's office, and the state auditor's office, want to make sure that our county is operating efficiently and doing what they say. The auditor's office is responsible to produce the consolidated annual financial statement report so that we can compare what we actually spent to the what was budgeted. You know, the county commissioners do that. We're not their adversaries, we're actually their help. You know, we should be the early warning system. We should be barking, oops, this line looks like it's going over budget, so that they have a chance to say, well, let's change the budget, let's cut here. So it's not just a case of coming in at the end of the year and saying, here's what you did. It's like throughout the year, giving them an idea where they stand, and being able to save costs by having the auditor know, state auditor know that they're dealing with a fellow professional.
You know, I agree with Earl Hall on that one. You know, in addition though, I have a solution for those who are not educated in financial documentation. When you go to the website, and if any citizen goes to the website, first and foremost, it's a little bit difficult to navigate, and in our tech-savvy society, we can have a better website. But, you know, in addition to that, what struck me as odd, you know, when I would show friends and family and other citizens the website, but also financial documents, was, whoa, I can't understand that. You're much better than me. I don't like that. I guess as a teacher, I want to be a guide by somebody's side instead of just a sage on a stage, if you get what I'm saying. I don't want to be the king. I want to help out people understand. So my solution is to, in the financial documentations on the PDFs, have small side notes that just objectively say what the numbers mean. Because when you're going through a 150-page document, you need somebody to help you out so that you can make better decisions. And like I said before, to get citizens more involved in politics, make them less scared and get the fear out of it. Thank you.
I asked if I restate the question, which is that the auditor's office is responsible for county accounting, payroll, and financial reporting. As auditor, what would you do to ensure the responsible handling and use of taxpayer dollars?
Well, it's very, the finance division, very systems-based, so payroll is pretty self-explanatory. You have your hours, your leave, you pay that out, it runs through a system. As far as accounts payable, making sure you have your proper documentation for invoice. We have a purchasing department, which is joint city-county, that we work together on, so there's a lot of requirements you have to go through as far as what are you putting your bills in for and what do the contracts say. One idea I did have with the CAFRs, because right now when you put that thing together, you bring all those reports, the expenditures, the revenue, all those together and presented to the commissioners. It's reviewed by an outside consultant, which does cost the auditor's office money. And that happens to be someone that was a former City of Yakima finance division member. But the commissioner's office could serve, this is a possibility, as the independent review for that report before before it goes out. So that's an idea where you could save some money. But I think it's important that we look at anything and everything in that division to make sure that there are good systems in place, because I've seen in other areas, at least at City Hall, is if you don't have a checks and balances, things are going to fall through the cracks. When you're dealing with this kind of money, you want to make sure that you cross your I's and dot your I's, cross your T's. There we go. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Gentlemen, you're coming in under your time on several occasions, so we have an opportunity for one of our bubble questions we weren't sure we'd have enough time for. And that is this. The auditor's office is responsible for superintending elections, and yet it is a partisan office. Should the auditor's office continue to be partisanly elected, or should it become a nonpartisan office in your opinion? We'll begin with Mayor Cawley. You have 1 minute.
Well, it's been a partisan office as long as I can remember since I've been voting, but I don't think voters seem to care. Corky is the only elected Democrat in Yakima County. My personal philosophy leans more towards the Republican Party, but I have other views that may not be in line with that philosophy. I think people want to know who you are, but to answer the question, should it be a partisan office? It doesn't have there's no necessity for that, just like city council is nonpartisan. But how you go about changing that, and under the county's government structure, I'm not sure what it would take to get that done. So I don't know if voters necessarily care as much, but they do like to know about you, who you are, what you subscribe to, and At least I know from talking to my grandpa, I'm one of the few Republicans he's voted for, and he's not with us anymore, but I don't know the answer to that question. I guess I'd have to get a gauge of the community whether they agree or disagree, but.
Well, I originally said that it should be a bipartisan office. It's obeying the law, and to do a good job, you need to obey the law no matter what the job is. And I think a Democrat can do that. I think a Republican can do that. And you know, originally I was very strict on the bipartisan thing. I was like, it doesn't matter, but you know, that is ignorant of the idea that there are very different views between Democrats and Republicans, but at the same time, it should be a bipartisan office. Now, should a Republican be in office, the idea of one of my stances of having photo identification to ensure the rights of the individual and make sure that they are okay. I remember I was at the farmer's market. I love being there. It's my wheelhouse. And at the farmer's market, I was talking to a husband and wife couple who are Democrat and described my idea for photo identification. Well, they said, well, that's largely a Republican issue, and we're Democrat, and you got to convince us to vote for you. So I mentioned that photo identification, in order for someone to get any of their helpful programs, which I'm a compassionate conservative, as the term has been keyed or coined, for someone to get those benefits, such as a WIC check, they need to have photo identification. And how much more so should they have photo identification for voting? So I think having an open table between Republicans and Democrats is important. But yes, I agree, it should be a bipartisan office. It doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. At the same time, things should be discussed.
It should be fairly obvious what I feel about it because I'm running as a nonpartisan. It definitely should be elected. It's a very important office to be elected. I was really struggling when I was trying to decide what party I wanted to file for. Initially, I filed for Democrats because I was just so ticked at the Republicans for endorsing Ross so early before anybody else had a chance to go. I saw bullying. I went back to all sorts of things emotional. So I begged the Democrats, please endorse me. Then I finally came to my senses and said, no, it doesn't matter. We're all in this together. Actually, running is nonpartisan in a partisan race. I don't have either Democrat or Republican support, so I'm asking for your support. But definitely should be nonpartisan. Sam Reed made a comment about a Democratic candidate. Was that a partisan thing? You don't know. One of the reasons I felt Corky was elected for so many years was the fact she was a Democrat. She could check all these Republicans that were leaders. It's sort of people in their mind thought, hey, checks and balances. If I run as, what happens if I run as a Democrat and then suddenly the Democrats take over county government? Now they're lucky. So I think definitely it should be a nonpartisan race. We should look for people who are qualified. We should look for people who are concentrating on the bottom line, which is the goal of county. Thank you.
As the candidate, there's no question I'm a Republican. I believe in Republican values in many, many ways, but I'm also a realist. I don't think for a moment that the county auditor, whomever is to be elected, would be able to use their office to majorly change the outcome of a vote to benefit their party. I think that the candidate is individually elected, which is very important. The county elected officials all have their own office. The budget is created by the county commissioners. There is a subservient role there that's by design. But I think to try to say I'm a Democrat or I'm not a Democrat or this person was one, therefore there should be one, is just political spin. I think politics break down to one simple thing. The candidate's credentials and their ability to campaign, and having done this for a while, really shows what a candidate can do and what you can accomplish, regardless of your party. There have been many Democrats that I've worked with in Olympia that I have tremendous respect for, and it makes no difference to me that they're Democrats. The fact of the matter is they're amazingly capable people, they get stuff done, and they don't take everything personal. To me, those are people that are easy to work with. I think we have a county full of them. I think there's a bunch of employees in the department that are in that same venue, and I look forward to being in that office.
That concludes our official questions. So now we will have 3 minutes for each of you to make any closing remarks or elaborate on any questions you may run out of time to responses to earlier. We'll begin with Mr. Ross. 3 minutes.
3 minutes. I pledge to you and whomever's reading or listening that if elected to the county auditor's position, I will do my level best to provide services that are at the service level today or better. I think my track record of the work I did in Natchez when I was the mayor there, working with the county elected officials as well as the state delegation to improve the quality of life for the Natchez citizens, speaks well of my abilities. I think my professional level, for those who have ever worked with me or dealt with me in that capacity, I would hope that you would have things to say that I would be proud of. And I've taken my work very, very seriously. My state work has been something that has been amazing to me. The accomplishments we've made, balancing budgets that cared for the disabled while investing in education and holding tuition dollars at a frozen position is not easy given the climate we're in. And the fact that I was in the final room of negotiations with the state budget writers, there was 6 of us in a room, or I'm sorry, there was 8 of us in a room. And I felt like I was sitting with folks who were complete geniuses when it came to budgets. But yet I felt that my role in there was to provide common sense and remind folks of really what the roles of government are and what we're supposed to do first. Meet those objectives, look at what's left, and then move from there forward. I hope to be able to take that same style, and if it worked at the state house level, and I hope that I can bring that to the county courthouse and become a very vital member of a team down there that appreciates my abilities and allows me to provide what I think is something very valuable to your team and to the county, and then the voters then in turn would be well served. So again, I ask for your vote, your support, and thank you.
Okay, I'd like to kind of summarize this. I was really happy this April to really work in the community beautification campaign. And I was really glad to see Mike Leda out there participating in that as a county employee. I got several pictures of him rolling up his sleeves and helping to make Yakima beautiful. I appreciate that, and I really hope, Mike, thank you for doing that. I think working together, we need to have common goals, and we need to work toward those goals. One of the things that's been talked about is leadership. When I was a veteran, or not a veteran, when I was in the service, I learned that a good American soldier stands toe-to-toe with the enemy. Whoever flinches first loses. We're in that same type battle right now. They talk about being I led Kiwanis groups of 65, but the hardest job I ever had was when I was in the University of Washington, Kent State. I saw American students' bodies lying on the ground. This brought a flashback to the body bags that I saw next to my unit flying in from Vietnam to the Philippines. There was thousands and thousands of students at University of Washington who saw their future as, I'm either going to be shot by the enemy or I'm going to be shot by my own government. I went into an active role in the protest movement because I tried to keep those, I recognized where they were at. I had those same feelings myself. I wanted to keep our property protected. I wanted to keep them straight. To me, leading 10,000 people who had nothing to lose is a hell of a lot better than trying to rule 40 or 50 recalcitrant Republicans. Thank you.
Politics is a weird thing to me. In terms of when I go onto Indeed.com or when, throughout my life when I've been looking for a job, when it says the qualifications that you need for the job, and I'm the one with the highest education here, I tend to follow what they say. I'm not going to lie in my resume. No one else here is lying either. I'm not saying that. Everyone's telling the truth and everyone's done a wonderful job. What I'm saying is that can other people in Yakima County be the county auditor? I believe that they can, certainly. At the same time, out of those here on this panel, I believe that I am the most qualified. Corky herself has a master's degree in counseling. I had a nice sit down with her, toured the office, talked with everyone. I'm on track for a Master of Business Administration degree, full-time student and a full-time teacher, and full-time dad. As you can see, I look a little tired, been up all night. Well, I'm just saying a manager should be educated with some knowledge about those who they manage, because I remember plenty of times feeling like people who are managing me are looking down on me a little bit because they have some axe to grind. Have an axe to grind. Thank you.
Well, we all got the blue memo today, just noticed that when we were sitting here.
Good Democratic color.
Oh, very good. I walked into that one. We're actually all qualified to run for auditor because we're on the ballot. 18 registered to vote, right? That's when I ran for city council. You know, I may not be the most educated up here, but I have a certain style and philosophy I bring to leadership. And if you look at my website and the people that are supporting me, I take offense to people that kind of say I'm beholden to my donors. The people that give me money are people that believe in me, and they're not people that tell me what my campaign strategy should be. They're people that I consult with, that I talk with. Rob McKenna's a supporter of mine. He's been a friend for years. When I asked Rob, will you endorse me for county auditor, he said, tell me what you're going to do in an email. And I like that because he's holding me accountable for the job that I want to run for. And before he offers his support, he's going to make sure that I'm someone he wants to put his name on. And you can go to my website, micahcawley.com, see what I want to do. My track record at City Hall is very interesting to me because I made some votes that on the outside I didn't think I would make, being on the inside of government and trying to make some changes there. It's very difficult. And the auditors have to be no different, but you need to go in and find out what the employees are thinking. You got to figure out the people you're working with. We have an entire new senior staff at City Hall. That's a collaborative effort by the City Council to change policy direction on a lot of different issues. And when the city manager came in for an interview, I said, how do you feel taking direction from a Yakima kid with a high school diploma? And he said, you're elected by the people, and that's what's important. And as long as the people elect one of us up here, I'll support them as the auditor, because that's what the people want. And I hope you'll at least look at my candidacy and give me your vote this August. Thanks.
Thank you, gentlemen. That concludes our questions for today's forum. Please join me in thanking all of the candidates, both for their participation and their willingness to serve our community. Thank you. And thank you to all of you who attended to hear and learn more today and to participate in our election system. If you enjoyed today's forum, you might also want to attend our next meeting of the Chamber's Government Affairs Committee, which will be noon on Tuesday, August 26th, where we'll be hearing from the candidates for the legislature from the 15th District. Again, thank you and have a good afternoon.
Hey Ryan, how are you? Very good. How are you doing?